everyone. It's so good to be here. Good evening, and you're welcome once again to the ninth edition of the Startup Compliance series. I'm very, very excited to have everyone here. So, welcome and good evening. Please feel free to join in. Send this link to as many persons that you have in your contacts, and then let them know that we're about to have an incredible time. You're welcome to this very interesting session. My name is Rosemond Phil-Othihiwa, and I am privileged to be the host for the Startup Compliance series. So to give a very short introduction, the Startup Compliance series basically is an information-centered series of events where we speak to several industry requirements and several industry information and requirements that you need in the startup ecosystem. We've had 8 very successful episodes thus far, and so we are currently on our 9th. So if you're here and you've been joining us, I want to say a very big thank you. We've had a lot of interesting persons speak on issues relating to trends, taxation, corporate governance, and so many things. So, without any further ado, today is very interesting, and we have none other but our amazing guest, who is definitely, I'm going to introduce her very, very soon. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but of course, a couple of us already know who she is because I've literally, given the announcements, I've sent and shared emails. But we're going to be speaking on a very interesting topic. And this is something that a lot of business owners, I would say, or a lot of startups are not even aware, right? Is a major requirement when it comes to doing business in Nigeria, and it is AML and CFT compliance. So for those of you that don't know what it is, just stick with us, right? And you definitely learn everything. So AML, CFT compliance are things that definitely are going to be spoken about today. So I'm going to be introducing my guest, and none other but Princess Obari Musa. Princess and I go way back to, if I recall, 2007 or 2008. We're in the same school together, but she's doing such an amazing and fantastic work in the startup ecosystem as far as tax is concerned. So allow me to make welcome Princess Obari Musa.
Hi, Rosemond. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being here.
you.
I was just telling our guest before you joined in that I think I've known you for the longest out of most of my friends, because literally we go way back, even down to university, and it's just been a very interesting experience. You're doing such a fantastic and amazing work, and I have no choice but to definitely read your profile. So give me the opportunity to. Okay, so I'm going to be reading your profile very shortly, and here we go. So Obare is a legal practitioner, a chartered tax practitioner, and AMLCFT compliance expert. She recently co-facilitated a regulatory compliance training for over 200 civil society organizations, that's NGOs across 10 states in Nigeria, under the British Council-sponsored EU Act Compliance Training Program. She has authored an SOP for NGO tax and AML CFT compliance. She is a fellow of the Nigerian School of Internet Governance, NSIG, a member of the Internet Society, an associate of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, the Business Recovery and Insolvency Practitioners Association of Nigeria, BRIPAN, the Nigerian Institute for Chartered Arbitrators, alumni of the Young African Leaders Initiative, with a rousing and standing ovation, right? I want you to make welcome Princess to this 9th edition. I am so excited, guys. Thank you so much, Princess, for being here. Thank you. You're muted. Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry. I was saying thank you so much
No
for
problem.
having me. You're doing a fantastic job in the startup ecosystem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for what
you.
you
Thank you.
do.
So, as many of us that are in the comment section, so please write your name, your full name, where you're joining us from, network with someone, get to know someone, get to meet someone, take a cup of coffee. I have mine here, right? So, Princess, let's just go straight to it, right? Because first of all, right, when people see AMLCFT, they're like, what is AMLCFT, right? I think that's the very first question. But before I go into that particular question, walk us through, your experience and basically how it's been for you in this space, right? And then of course, you can share any information before we go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get your question. If you could come
So I
again,
said,
please.
walk us through your experience, and then people get confused when they hear AML CFT. So maybe you can tell us what that is, right, before we go to the other aspects of this discussion.
Okay. If I heard you correctly, you're asking what has my experience been in the AML CFT compliance ecosystem so far, and then what
Yeah.
is AML CFT? That's it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, basically, I would say that so far in Nigeria, compliance as regarding AML, that is anti-money laundering, and combating the financing of terrorism, compliance in Nigeria has been very low. It has been very low. Although the relevant regulatory agency in charge of compliance with AML/CFT regulations have tried to put various structures in place. One of the most important thing they've done is they've tried to make a registration certificate requirement for opening a bank account in any bank in Nigeria where you want to open a business account. So you need a school certificate to open a business bank account. However, a lot of people just pay someone to help them get their certificate. They get the certificate, open the account, and then that is all. They don't do any other thing. They don't know any other thing. They just believe that they have their certificate and that is it. So I'll say compliance rate in Nigeria is really very low. Is low and is worrisome because Nigeria is one of the countries where we face terrorism, and we've heard of so many stories of corruption, money laundering, and all of that. So this is one nation where AML CFT is supposed to be enforced, but compliance is still low. So in my experience, compliance has been very low. Most times you see the relevant agencies coming after people who are businesses that have not yet complied, and then there's a back and forth, facing penalties and all, and you're trying to settle out of court and all of those. Yes. So when we talk about AML, what is AML? Before I tell you what's AML, because the name itself is suggestive of what it is, I'd like to tell you what money laundering is. Yeah. So basically, money laundering. I don't know if I can start sharing my screen now. You're muted. Okay.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So basically, I said money laundering is the concealment of fund or property that forms part of the proceeds of an unlawful act or an illegal source. So the idea behind money laundering is that the source of the fund is illegal. The source of the fund is unlawful. The source of the fund is the problem with money laundering. It's trying to get illegal funds to put them back in the system to now appear legal. That is what money laundering is about. So when you talk about terrorist financing, as the name suggests, it has to do with funding terrorist activities with funds from legal or illegal sources. So for terrorist financing, the fund can be legal. You can get them from legal sources. That's not a problem. The problem here is the activity that is being financed. That is where the problem is, terrorism. So while for money laundering, the source is the problem. For terrorist financing, the activity that is being financed is the problem. So both of them, either ways, seek to take undue advantage of the financial system. That is, there is the intention to conceal the end product of the money that is being sent in, and there's the intention to conceal the source of the funds that is received. So that is much about AML/CFT. I don't know if you want me to just go on. I don't know if you want me to just go on with my
Yes,
slides or
please. Yes,
asking
please. Please go
questions.
ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, thank you. So when we talk about AML, what then is AML? AML CFT. AML, as I've said earlier, means anti-money laundering, against money laundering. What is CFT? CFT is simply combating the financing of terrorism. So AML CFT regulations are just procedures that have been put in place to prevent and then detect the concealment of illegal funds and the financing of terrorism. So it has to do with everything concerning regulations, policies, and procedures that has been set up to counter everything concerning money laundering and then terrorist financing. You might be wondering why is it important? Why is AML CFT important? Can't we just live our lives like that? No, we can't just live our lives like that, because terrorist activities, one way or the other, come back to haunt us and our businesses. They come back to haunt our families. So everybody has to join hands together in the fight against terrorist financing. You need to protect your business. Terrorism is a world problem. It's not just a Nigeria problem, it's a global problem. Other nations, they want to be sure that, okay, if I'm investing in this country, are my funds going to be safe? Are my funds going to yield returns? Or will I hear that the terrorists, as they've carried out one act of bombing, destroyed one property or the other? So it's a global problem. And for us to make sure that we put our businesses at a close ranking par with international businesses, we have to work together to enforce and ensure that AML CFT regulations are actually thriving in our country. Also, for your business, it helps to give you a good reputation internationally when you have good AML CFT policies in place, because it's beautiful to be reputable that, oh, this company doesn't have any business with money laundering or terrorist financing. It's a good thing to a business reputation. And then money laundering and terrorist financing also affect foreign direct investments. Either ways, because when the illegal money is coming in, what are you making of those that are earning their monies legally? Come on, there is an imbalance. And so monies cannot be really accounted for, and it will go ahead to affect foreign direct investment. Aside that, other nations, other foreigners would not want to come and invest in your nation if you don't have AML and CFT procedures. So then what are the basic requirements for AML CFT procedures? In a nutshell, yeah, you just have a bunch of policies, procedures, reporting systems that all work together to monitor the financial transactions and then detect any perceived suspicious activity. They are not stringent at all. They're easy to follow. If you have them in place, in short, it would even be a booster for you to garner funds from investors when they know that your AML CFT policies are in place. They would want to invest in your business. So now let's look at the Nigeria's AMLCFT regulatory agencies, going into their framework here. Rosemond, I hope everyone can hear me. I hope you can hear me as well.
I hear you perfectly. Very, very
Okay.
perfectly.
Okay. Thank you. Talking about the regulatory agencies, when you get AMLCFT in Nigeria, what are you looking out for? You're looking out for the Central Bank of Nigeria. You're looking out for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. And then finally, you're looking out for the court. When I say the Central Bank of Nigeria, we're talking about tech startups. Tech startups encompass both fintechs and those that are now into fintech. Yeah, so if you fall into the category of a fintech, you should understand that your duty or your responsibility in regard to AML CFT would be towards the Central Bank of Nigeria, particularly the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit that is domiciled in the Central Bank of Nigeria. And then if you are not a fintech, but you're a tech startup, but what you do is not fintech in nature, you know that you are looking at the EFCC, and the department in the EFCC you'll be looking at is the Special Control Unit Against Money Laundering. It's a department in the EFCC. You would also have to do some reportings to the NFIU, but your basic obligation is to the SCOMO. And then the judiciary. The judiciary comes up where you've breached any of the provisions of the AMLCFT. They are last on the chain. But nobody's going to impose penalties on you until they've taken you to a competent court to actually determine if you've breached any of the provisions. And going on to the next slide, what are the relevant laws we'll be looking at? The relevant laws we'll be looking at are the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. Very laudable that at least this is one of the legislations that were not appending 1987 to the year. We have it just 2022. So it means that the Nigerian regulatory agencies in respect of AMLCFT are actually working to make sure that the country ranks equal with international organizations. We also have the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 as well. And then we have the EFCC, Anti-Money Laundering, CFT, and Countering Proliferation Financing of Weapons of Mass Destruction for Designated Non-Financial Businesses and Professions, and other related matters regulations 2022. Then we also have the CBN, AML, CFT, CPF regulations 2022. Beautiful. All these regulations and acts, they are all in 2022. So now we'll dive down into the nitty-gritty of what you are expected to do with AMLCFT. I might just want to tell you what the consequences of no compliance will be first, but let me leave it for later. So first of all, what are you required to do? Yeah, you need to register. You need to register before you commence business. The Act provides that before you commence business, you should register with the relevant regulatory agency. So if you fall under a non-fintech startup, you are looking at registering with SCOMO, yeah? And then the timeline for registration, usually you're supposed to have registered before you commence business. Or let's say you've commenced business before this act was enacted. You commenced business before 2022, before the act came into force. You're supposed to have registered 3 months after the act came into force. So if you've not registered, you're already due for penalty. But the beautiful part is that I've not heard or I've not seen or I've not experienced SCOMO prosecuting anyone for late registration. So although the law is there, they're actually not enforcing it so much. They're not stringent with it. So if you decide to go, if you decide to go register today, nobody's going to penalize you that you've not registered for a long time now. No, maybe it's going to change, but now it has not changed. So you have to take the hint and do what is needful before they wake up to this lapse and start trying to what's it called, prosecute people. And then, okay, I told you that I was not going to talk about the consequences. Yeah. How's the procedure for registering? The procedure for registering is very easy and simple. I actually did a video of it, but for time, I will not be sharing the video. I wanted to walk us through it. Very easy. You just go to SCOMO website. You can see the website on my slide, scomo.org. That is their landing page. When you go to the landing page, you look to the right-hand side, you see a page for registration. Otherwise, if you don't want to go to the landing page, you can just go directly to the registration portal. That is the other link that's on the right-hand side. That is portal1.scomo.net and the other extensions after it. Click on it. You click that you want to register, and then you see the sector that you're registering in. Are you a DNFB or an NPO? select the sector that you are in, fill in the requisite details, and then it's pretty easy. Registration is pretty easy. It's online. It's strictly online. You cannot do it offline. It's strictly online. When you register, you submit the requisite documents. Within a period of 15 days, they should have notified you that, okay, you have been registered. Although the certificate will not be available immediately because they have challenges printing certificates and all. But they'll tell you that you have been registered, and with that, you can open a bank account because they'll give you a number already. And so, yes, talking about the documents that they require, it's basically dependent on the kind of business, the kind of tech business that you're into, yeah. But some things that are just basic. Your CSC registration certificate is a necessity. Then, depending on whether you're registered as a business name or as a limited liability company or whatever kind of company you're registered as, they will require the CAC form that has the particulars of the natural persons that are registered for the company as directors or shareholders, or the sole proprietor. So basically, that is it. You're also going to submit your identity card in addition to whatever they would require you to submit, but it is pretty easy. It is easy. Then what is the next thing that you're required to do? The next thing that you're required to do, I didn't skip, okay. You're required to set up internal programs. This one is mandatory. It's mandatory. I know you'll be wondering that, what about a one-man business? How do I have these things listed in? Anyway, let's walk through them first. First of all, you are required to appoint a compliance officer. Not just anybody, somebody at management level, somebody that has a part ownership of the company or has a say in the company, not just anyone. You need to appoint a compliance officer, certainly. Then you also have to prepare a written AMLCFT policy and procedure. Your company has to have your AMLCFT policy. Now, this policy is not going to exist in your mind. It must be written. Not just written, you will take it to SCUMO to get SCUMO's approval of that policy, because failure to do so is also a punishable offense. And then regularly, you have to review and update the policy triennially. That is, once every 3 years, you have to update this policy, review it once every 3 years. Aside that, you would ensure that the policy is clearly communicated to employees. So you might see school officials coming to visit your office one day and they're asking somebody at the gate, what is your AMLCFT policy? And the person at the gate cannot say that day. Just know that you bought. Let me leave it at because I don't know how you're going to settle that. But make sure every single member of staff, every employee understands your AMLCFT policy. Communicate it to them clearly. Then you also have to carry out annual trainings for all employees. If you see, I used all caps for the all, so you know it's important that everybody, including the person at the gate or the person cleaning, everybody is expected to undergo a training for AMLCFT. Then you also have to have your internal audit department conduct an oversight of the compliance function. They do this twice a year in June and December. You need an internal audit department. What some companies do when they don't have an internal audit department for this, they get external compliance consultants to help them carry out this audit. You do it twice a year, June and December. The purpose is to see the functionality of the AMLCFT policy that you put in place. How is it? How is the functionality of our policy? Does it meet standard? Is it so far, has it actually been serving purpose? Have we been upping our game in this regard? That's what the internal audit will do. And also, the internal audit is also required, the department is also required to carry out periodic reviews of the policy, of its functionality quarterly. The functionality of the policy that you have adopted, they also have to do that quarterly. Carry out your audit quarterly. So in this quarter of the year, how did we do concerning AMLCFT? Did we hit it or miss it? Everybody has to be everybody have to be totally involved in making sure that these policies are reviewed over and over again. And then recently, this is an introduction brought about by this act, the regulations that I listed earlier on. You need to subscribe, your business or you need to subscribe to the Nigerian Sanctions Committee's alert system. I put the website there. It's nicsac.gov.ng. The purpose of subscribing to this alert system is that there are list of persons that have been prescribed as terrorists. There are list of countries. There are list of businesses, entities, organizations that have been prescribed for either money laundering or terrorist activities or financing proliferation of weapons of mass destructions. They are listed there. So one of those kind of persons listed there, organizations listed there, cannot be coming to fund your business and you feel unawareness. You say you're not aware that this person was prescribed a terrorist financier or something. Nobody would hear you because you already have a duty to register and subscribe to the alert system of NICSAC, so that when you subscribe per time, as anybody is prescribed internationally and nationally, you get the alert that, oh, this organization has been prescribed. You are put on the know. You have a list of the people that have been prescribed and businesses that have been prescribed, so you don't, out of ignorance, deal with these persons without filing the necessary reports. So that is it for the mandatory programs. And talking about your other responsibility for AMLCFT compliance, we're looking at risk assessment and due diligence. You have a duty to conduct risk assessment. The reason for conducting risk assessment is so that you can understand the level of due diligence to apply when you are dealing with customers. So when you say risk assessment, when a customer comes to you or an employee, take note that you're not just conducting AMLCFT procedures on customers alone. You're conducting on both customers, both the people that you employ to work with you. You must check their background. What the beneficiaries that they have one thing or the other to send to, you must check their background. Even if a customer is acting on behalf of someone, you go past the person that is in front of you and inquire about the person on whose behalf they are acting on. That is the beneficial owner. So you have to conduct risk assessment to ascertain the level of risk for every transaction that you are about to undertake. Now you do your standard due diligence where you have a new business relationship. You're just forming a new business relationship. You have to carry out standard due diligence. Get the name of the person, the address of the person, just minute details of the person, not so stringent. Just get as much as is needed for the new business that you are getting into. And then where someone does occasional cash transactions for fintech that are above $1,000 or its equivalent, yeah, you want to do standard due diligence, okay, all right. Then we move over to simplified due diligence. You're doing standard due diligence where the risk is low. Yeah, you've done the assessment. One thing I didn't say is the way you go about your assessment. Those are part of the things that your policy would contain. So in going about your assessment, you want to ask yourself, what is the person I'm dealing with? What is the industry the person is coming from? Where is the country this person is? Is this country one that is prone to terrorist activities or not? And then finally, you'd want to talk about the fact that what is the nature of the business that we're getting into. These four aspects, what will help you conduct a perfect risk-based assessment. And then when you answer these questions, it will tell you whether this transaction is one of high risk or the risk is medium, or the risk is low. So yes, simplify due diligence. Where the risk is low, after you conduct your risk-based assessment and the risk is low, you know that, okay, there's no possibility of money laundering here, or terrorist financing, or proliferation financing. You know that the risk is low. You do simplify due diligence. Or where the identity of the customer that you're dealing with is publicly available, like there's nothing sketchy there. You go on to NIMC website and you can access something about them. You go to probably NIDA, you can access something about them. They just, the person's details is just publicly available. You know that, okay, this person wouldn't be sketchy. Where adequate checks exist in national system, or the transaction volume is low, you see that, okay, so you can just do a simplified due diligence and stop at getting the person's ID card. When I say stop at getting the person's ID card, I'm talking about in addition to every other thing that you've collected from the person in standard due diligence, and now add the ID card to it, and all. Yeah. Then we go to enhanced due diligence, EDD. Where there is the likelihood of money laundering or terrorist financing, you need to do enhanced due diligence. Now, you might be wondering, how will I know that there is a likelihood of money laundering? How? Take, for instance, someone wants to run a transaction with you, and the volume of the transaction is such that you are wondering, how did this person get this money? Like, how? Like, there's something. Or the person wants to do a transaction with you, or let's say the person wants to invest in your tech business, and the person is saying, okay, I'm going to invest this amount, but you see half of this money, take it to one place in Meduguri, somewhere in Sambisa forest, make sure you give to this family and make sure they get this money, but you can take the other half as investment in your business. Something should click in your brain that this is terrorism financing. Look at the place that they're telling you to take the money to, and that they're also even telling you the family to give the money to. Why don't they just go themselves and give the family that money without involving you, and just invest in your business? So you know that there is something wrong there. It's already a red flag for you. And where doubts exist about identification documents, somebody gives you an identification document, and somehow, human beings are very intuitive. We're very intuitive. Sometimes don't brush off your intuitions and just use your business sense to cover it and say, I'm just feeling. When you feel something is off, chances are that something is off. The identification that you've gotten, there's something sketchy about it. You should be ready to do enhanced due diligence. What does enhanced due diligence entail? It entails, when you get those documents, don't stop at that. You're reaching out to third parties, reaching out to the ID card management commission, and you're telling them that, okay, this person gave this ID card with this number, and so I just want to confirm, is it real? Is it actually authentic? They will confirm for you. Or you reach out to the immigration service. This person brought this ID card. Is it real? Is it okay? Is it legit? There was something that happened some time back, Rosemond. I think that was in 2020 or 2021. I don't know. So 2021, or you know the facts about it. How for the first time I saw a NEPA bill. Yes. I saw a utility bill that was doctored. You wouldn't know that it was doctored except you zoomed, and then you see that, oh, okay, this was doctored. Rosemond, you know the people I'm talking about.
I do.
This was doctored. And then there was also the issue of your Nigerian passport, and choosing that this person has this Nigerian passport with this name, has this one with this name.
Yeah.
Come on, things have been doctored. So whenever you feel something is off, conduct your enhanced due diligence. Then when you're dealing with politically exposed persons, it doesn't matter if anything feels off or not off. If the person is a politically exposed person, the person has held one political office or the other, has been essayed to somebody or the other, the person is in politics, just know that you are conducting enhanced due diligence. there's no negotiating about it, whether everything feels right or not. For the fact that the person is a PEP, you must conduct your enhanced due diligence. And then when you suspect the source of the fund to be illegal, you have to conduct your enhanced due diligence. So that's it for your risk assessment and then your due diligence. There's something that was just recently also added to the new act, and that's the risk assessment that you have to conduct in relation to development of new products or practices, or where you're adopting new technologies. You don't just dive that, okay, this technology is out, this software is out, or this, let me just dive into it. No, you have a duty to conduct a risk assessment on it and say, okay, is there anything behind what we are saying or not saying? And before you dive into a new product, or before you start developing a new product or getting into new technologies and all of that. Then for financial institutions, that is fintechs in this parlance, you are expected to conduct your 3-tiered EKYC. EKYC, that's know your customer. Everybody, when you go to the bank, you want to open an account, there are forms they give you to fill. Sometimes it's annoying, but they have no choice. You have to fill those forms, because if you don't fill those forms, you'll be putting them in trouble, whether your intentions are good or not. Those forms are KYC forms. So the 3-tier are low
So what
value
you're saying now,
account.
is it currently on the slide? Because I think we are still in risk assessment and due diligence.
Yes, it's on the slide, the last line of the slide.
Okay, I can see it.
Yes, you have the low value accounts where you see that the account is low value. You know you're conducting your standard due diligence. Where you see that the account is okay, medium value, you're still looking at standard and simplified due diligence. But where it's an high value account, you know that you have to do enhanced due diligence seriously. And you know you classify the value of accounts based on the funds, the level of transactions, the quantity of transactions, and the quantity of funds that go through them regularly. And moving on to the next, this is reporting. This is where a lot of people, no, let me not say this is where a lot of people, because fixing mandatory programs, they are it's really heard that most businesses have mandatory programs. So it's basically all of them. But this reporting is actually the one that the regulatory agency is more after. Where you breach it, like you know that there might not be pardon for it, you might actually have to pay the penalties involved. Reporting. So one, we have the cash-based transaction reporting, that is CBTR. Now, where you carry out transactions that are above $1,000 or its equivalent, you have to file a report within 7 days of conducting that transaction. Now you're wondering, why is it in dollars? But in Nigeria, why would they just say in naira? Well, the rationale behind that is because the naira is sort of volatile. It fluctuates a lot. So if you pin a price with the naira, it might look unrealistic when you're comparing it with international policies, international AMLCFT policies. And so since the dollar seems more stable and has more spread, the draftsmen thought it best to instead use dollars. So when you're conducting any transaction that has to do with any sum exceeding $1,000, please, within 7 days, you file your cash-based transaction report. I know you're asking, how do you file the report? I'll come to that. Then the next is the currency transaction report. Now, if you deal with an individual, yeah, and the dealing with the individual, you spend more than, or the individual pays you more than 5 million naira, you have to file a currency transaction report. If it's a corporate body you're dealing with and the sum is one that exceeds 10 million naira or its equivalent, you have to file a currency transaction report. Also, where domestic transfers occur in foreign currency and they are above $10,000, you have to file a currency transaction report. So you might want to say, what is the difference between cash-based transaction reports on then currency transaction report. Cash-based transaction report, as the name implies, cash, dealing with cash. When somebody wants to come and pay you cash that exceeds $1,000, it's best for you to say you don't deal in cash. Please go and use the bank to make this transfer. If you do that, you'd have absolved yourself of the need to file the cash-based transaction report. But if you choose to collect that money, because you're not supposed to, if you choose to, you have to file the cash-based transaction report. Almost the same thing applies to currency transaction report, but currency transaction report is that it's already setting. You cannot accept cash that is 5 million naira from an individual. That you cannot accept it. So that one's already, you know that this is already a bank transaction. But where the bank transaction exceeds 5 million naira, you have to file the currency transaction report, or 10 million naira for the place of in a place of a corporate entity. You have to file currency transaction report. And this report must be filed within 7 days of the occurrence of the transaction. Now, some people might want to be smart. You say, okay, do you know what? Since it's going to be above 5 million naira today, this week, give us 2 million. Next week, bring 4 million. The other week, bring no. Even if you have an agreement that the money is going to come in tranches, from the moment you had the knowledge that the entire sum is going to be 50 million naira, the duty to report arose from that moment. So it's up to you to say the money is going to come in tranches. But from the moment you knew, you have to file the report. You cannot split the money to avoid this. You might want to ask that, okay, so how would the regulatory agency find out? You don't want to be caught in it to know how they will find out, because I can tell you they will find out. They will. I've seen a lot of situations where they found out. So instead, just comply. Then there's the suspicious transaction report. The suspicious transaction report and suspicious activity. Now, where there's a suspicion, it has nothing to do with the volume of the fund, or if you suspect anything. If you feel like, okay, there's something off about this transaction, I know, immediately file your suspicious transaction report to the NFIU. You file your suspicious transaction report to the NFIU. Now, where the transaction seems unusual, or where it seems suggestive of ailment methods, I listed some earlier on, you need to report. For those that are not financial institutions, those are not fintech companies, you report to the NFIU. If you're also a fintech company, you report to the NFIU for your suspicious transaction report. Yeah. Then, okay. Let me move on to my next slide. No, but before I move on to the next slide, I want to say something about this reporting. Yes, this reporting is done online as well. For the cash-based transaction report, for those that are non-fintech startups, you have to do that report to SCUMO. Also, the currency transaction report, it is to SCUMO if you are non-fintech. But if you are fintech, cash-based transaction, currency transaction, suspicious transaction, all of them goes strictly to the NFIU, not SCUMO. So the procedure for reporting is online. There's already a standard form, so you don't have to stress yourself. All you need to do is to fill the form. I'm going to show you the form. Let me see. Okay, yes. So this is what the form looks like. This is what the form looks like. It's easy to fill, it's easy to access. And I hope I can leave it now, because I see we're pressed for time.
Yeah. We also have some questions in the comments, so I just wanted to finish your train of thought.
Okay. So aside these reports that you have to file, you're also required to file monthly reports on the transactions that are conducted for and on behalf of the public sector. So if there's a public sector transaction, you have to file a report on it, regardless of the volume of the money, whether it's above $1,000 or 5 million or 10 million. So long as there's public sector involved in it, you file a report. Then you also need to file your monthly report on transactions that are conducted by or for politically exposed persons. You know, when you're dealing with political exposed persons, you do your enhanced due diligence. Aside that, you also file a report concerning the transaction that went on with them. Then, where no reporting obligation arose, you are required to file your monthly new reports. New reports is when you saw that form I shared now. Just write new. Simple. That's all for a month. When nothing arose, there's no CBT for you, no CTRO, and no SDR. And you also need to file your yearly report on your employees training, and then the audit that your internal audit department carried out. You have to file that report before 31st of December of the financial year. And you're also required to submit your annual training plan for approval before the year that the plan is supposed to take place. And I mentioned that the report is filed online. If you go to SCUMU website, you can, I have the website listed, the website for reporting, but once you go to SCUMU website, you'll be able to access it. You can file in the portal, you can file this report in the portal. However, if you cannot access the portal, probably from some glitches or the other, you can send the report, fill the form, download it, fill it, and then send it to their email address. The email is there, info@efcc.gov.ng. The same applies for NFIU. NFIU, they have their portal for filing. If you can't file, you can also send it to compliance@nfiu.gov.ng. And then, so yeah, finally on the requirements, record keeping. Record keeping. You have to keep keep records of all your transactions. I mean, all your transactions for a minimum period of 5 years after the transaction. So don't discard anything. Make sure you have them after the transaction has ended. For the next 5 years, you have to archive those documents. Keep every single thing, ID card, every single thing you collected, every single thing that has to do with a transaction. Make sure you keep your records. And talking about before I go to, I skipped the consequences of non-compliance.
Yes, very
Yeah.
interesting. We need to know.
Yes, you need to know, but I would not. I'm not going to dwell so much on it, because from what I've discovered, when people hear the consequences, some people, they are even demoralized to even go and register, and you're wondering that, but this is supposed to make you register. They just want to keep themselves out of the eye of the regulatory agency. There's a downside to that. One day they will find you. When they find you, the penalties would have accrued. Okay, so you have legal sanctions. If you don't comply with all of these things that I've listed, there are legal sanctions for them. And the sanctions, there are many. They range from paying as much as 250,000 naira if you're a business person for every day that this default continues. They range from that, but the pricing, like the fines, has to do with whether you're a business or you're a corporate entity, or whether you're a director that breached one of the duty and all of that. So they range from paying of huge sums of fines to imprisonment terms, and you don't want to start diving into issues. You can avoid it. Why not just avoid it? So just think about it, that if you don't comply with all of these things that I've listed out, all of them, each of them have their penalties. If I say I want to go into each of the penalties, we're going to take another time. So that's why I just did a little, just abbreviated everything, like summarize it to let you know that what awaits you. Payment of huge fines awaits you, not just fines, imprisonments. You can either pay fine or go to prison, or you can be sent to prison and also requested to pay the fine. So you don't want to do that. There's something I forgot to mention for suspicious transaction. When you are filing a suspicious transaction report, please, or when you are conducting enhanced due diligence, don't tell the person involved that I'm suspecting something. Don't even give the person any hints that filing a report or you are doing enhanced due diligence because, not even say, no, they require me to do this because this is a suspicious transaction. Don't say it. Don't say anything. The fact that you're filing a suspicious transaction report does not mean that NFIU will immediately come and arrest the person. No, they will investigate. They would investigate, and they will not even blame you if after investigating there's nothing there, the person was not found culpable of anything. They won't blame you. Nobody will come to hunt after you. It will just lie. So don't give anybody the hint. If you give anybody the hint, it's a crime on its own that comes with imprisonment terms and payment of fines. So you don't want to do that. Aside the fines that are imposed, reputational damage. Yeah, I don't know if we heard the story of Ping Express. Did anybody hear the story of Ping Express? Ping Express is a Texas-based.
Remember?
Okay, you remember? Yeah, it's a Texas-based fintech. And what did they do? This fintech, they are doing great. They're doing great. The founders are actually two Nigerians. What they do is that they help Africans repatriate their monies in the US back to Africa. That's what they do. But guess what? That's how because they did not put stringent AMLCFT procedures in place. They transferred monies, millions of dollars to Nigeria that were gotten from romance scams, what we call Yahoo Yahoo. And that caused them to land themselves in prison. They had to go to prison for it. Imagine, where they were not the ones that scammed anybody. All they did was because they didn't put the relevant AMLCFT procedures in place, they had to spend 8 years in federal prison. Imagine 8 years of life of a bright founder, a good startup that is making money already, and the founder finds himself in prison. So you don't want to do that. You really want to comply and all of that. So I go to my concluding slides with the key takeaways from everything that we've said, like as a summary for you. So if you forget anything, at least you won't forget this slide. Don't forget to register. Don't forget to file your mandatory reports. Don't forget to put up or adopt the requisite internal measures. That includes your KYC, your risk assessment, your due diligence, the trainings, audit, and appointment of your chief compliance officer. And don't forget to keep the relevant records. So I would say thank you very much for
Wow.
allowing me to
Wow.
say.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Wow. This is wow. All I can just say is wow. Thank you. Wow. Wow. This is a lot to take in, but this is very, very instructive. This is very instructional. So thank you so much. Guys, I see your comments in the comment section. We're going to come to you in a bit, but can somebody just put a virtual round of applause for Princess?
Oh,
Thank you
thank you.
so much, ma'am. While you were
Thank you.
speaking, every single question I had in my head, literally, you answered. Because let me tell you the truth, I think we have barely 7 minutes to go, so we're just going to be very quick. A lot of people just have a vague idea of this small thing. And like you rightly said, compliance is very low. A lot of people don't even know what it is. They don't know how it goes about. And I think that for me, in terms of the way you've explained it, I don't see, and I correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see a lot of, trainings to business and startup founders on these exact measures. And that's why I'm really glad that the measures you are taking, you've literally conducted trainings, across different states in the country. So I really, really appreciate, taking out the time to really educate us, because this is something that we need to know. It's so amazing that you have penalties for not being able to comply with these laws, and a lot of people are just, not doing that. So thank you so much. So we're going to go to some of the comments. We've seen some of the comments in the comment section. We'll answer them, but very quickly. So I think one question was asked by Carl Ken Honora. He says, so I think this question was already answered in the course of the speaking, but just to ask, he said, for CBTR, does it include remote workers in Nigeria who receive more than 1,000? My own opinion is that it's a transfer. I don't think they're bringing cash, so I don't know if that's applicable, but I don't know what your thoughts are. Can you hear me? I think you're muted.
Yes, yes. I guess I could hear you. Is that the
Yeah.
only question, sir?
So we have that. Okay, then let me go to the next question. Then we have to sing Kuye, who has said, if you're transferring 5 million naira and above, not cash, do you still report under the currency transaction reports? I think that answers itself, but you can, yeah. What other questions do we have? Okay, I think those are the questions that we have for now. So yes, we just have
Okay.
those two questions. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So you say if you're a worker in Nigeria and you're a remote worker and then you're receiving above $1,000, if you file the cash-based transaction report, it's not your duty. You are receiving the money,
Yeah.
right? You're a worker. You're receiving the money. A business is paying you that money. Is that it?
Yeah. So the question is, does that business file? I guess that's
Yes,
what his
that,
question.
that that business, depending on what is obtainable in the country where that business is domiciled, the business might be required to file the cash-based transaction report, depending on what is obtainable in that country. But for you that is receiving that earning, you don't have a duty to report. But if you choose to report, there's a provision in the law that says if you choose as an individual to make any report like that, it's fine, it's all good and fine. But if you don't report it, there's no sanction against you for not reporting that.
Okay. All right.
Then,
Thank you very much.
then for the next question,
Yes, let me put that up. Yeah. Josie
okay,
says you are transferring 5 million and above. So that's for the person doing the transaction, the transfer,
yes,
or so we are receiving, I guess.
if you're transferring 5 million and above, remember that AMLCFT procedures we're talking about is in light of a business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if what you are dealing with, this 5 million and above that you are transferring, if it's a business transaction, you have to report it. If it's a business transaction, because you know that the idea behind terrorist financing and money, the funds seem like they are legitimate instead of doing individual transfers of this thing. So if it's in a business balance that you're transferring this money, you have to make the report. Depends on the party that you are in the business transaction. If you are the business, that you are the startup and someone is
Yeah.
has given you money and then you need to pay that money to somebody for something, you have to make that report. So long if whoever you're paying to is an individual, if it's an individual and it exceeds 5 million naira, you have to file that report. So
Okay. Thank you.
I hope
Thank you.
I answered the
Thank you
question.
so much. So there's just a lot that we have literally learned from this session because first of all, you have identified, the procedure. And thankfully, many of the persons who are going to be watching this record, because yes, to answer a question that was put up, yes, this session is currently being recorded, so you can always go back and watch for as many times as possible. It basically gives us direction because I remember when I was going to the Skumu website, right, and I was trying to register, create an account. It asks you, are you a non-for-profit or you are just an organization that is dealing with that. So the website in itself is clear, but there was something that happened to me. So when I was trying to register for a certificate, literally they asked for the bank account to proceed. And I think that's a challenge because the essence of you applying for this school certificate is to be able to open a bank account, right? Because I noticed that when I was filling the form, it asked for the bank account and it didn't allow me complete the filling of the form until I had the bank account. So it's like a chicken and the egg situation. Which one comes first? So that was a particular challenge I had. And that was why I was really curious because usually they would ask for that certificate before they open the account. But the truth is, what is obtainable in practice is that they will give you the account number, then they will tell you that you have to go and get you apply, just show that you're applying first. Then they will give you something temporary, or they will give it to you. Then maybe they will put a temporary, pause on your account until you get it. I don't know how it works, but basically that's what it is. In the course of my dealing, I've seen a lot of businesses reach out and say, "Oh, we are trying to import this API provider, so maybe Paystack or Flutterwave in our payment process, and they are requesting for it." At the end of the day, they need to get that certificate after, and you realize that they're just putting up penalties. So thank you for actually explaining this process, and I'm really glad that this entire thing is online because just imagine if we had to be going to EFCC office, it's going to be very stressful. So you have actually made the work easy. Thank you for putting the website, on the slides, and we're able to, watch it and go to the website. So thank you so much. So guys, are there any other questions? Our speaker is very pressed for time. If I'm getting this 1 hour from her, is amazing, such a gift. So thank you, Princess. Thank you so much. I see comments. Oh yes, people are celebrating you in the comment section. Thank you, Ebe. Thank you, Joseph Omoba. He's here. Thank you, Miriam Okrika. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nosakari. We are very grateful. Thank you for being a part of this session. So we are so happy to
People
have you. So
having
please, if you have any further comments, and of course you need Princess's services, you can always reach out to her. She's definitely available. And every startup that is going to listen to this conversation, that is on this conversation, this is not a nice to have. These laws were enacted in 2022. So right now is the best time to ensure that you are doing this. So thank you very much. I guess definitely has to go, but of course you can always reach out to her. Thank you very much, guys, for being a part of this session. We are very grateful. Like I said, the essence of this session basically is to ensure that we are equipped with knowledge. So if you need any information, make sure that you watch this video over and over again. Send me a message. If you are live on YouTube, thank you very much. I saw some comments on YouTube. We'll definitely reach out. And if you're live on LinkedIn, thank you for taking the time and spending an hour plus with us. So I am, on behalf of our guest speaker and my humble self, I just want to say thank you once again for being a part of the Startup Compliance series. And I'm very glad to have you. I want you to set your reminders. We're going to be having our 10th edition on the 29th of this month. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. And I know that you are definitely going to have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, right? So thank you very much. And just a very short announcement. One of the things that we are doing, even right under this series, is to equip startups that are able to, take advantage of this session. So if you go through my LinkedIn, you'll be able to see that we're having a corporate governance masterclass for startups that is happening on the 1st and 2nd week of July. So I want you to make sure that you go on that particular post, click the link, register, and I will look forward to seeing you on that masterclass. If we've been having these sessions throughout from the month of January, you can only imagine the value you would get when we intentionally focus ourselves on that particular aspect. So share the links with everyone, and I will be seeing you in the next series. I'm very excited and I look forward to having you. Yes, for the resources, I see Tosin's question. For the resources, we're going to communicate with you via email and you'll be able to have access. So thank you very much, everyone. I am very grateful. Have a very beautiful evening and bye for now.